Hello again. So now this module at this point is focusing on the PowerPoint that's giving you an overview of backwards design from the book Understanding by Design by Jay McTighe and Grant Wiggins. So you look at these three stages of planning, and what they're getting at is that our lessons, our units, our courses at the college level must be logically derived from what we want students to learn. And you're thinking, well, that's obvious. But I want you thinking about this. Often, they're derived from the books, the readings, the methodologies that we find most engaging, that we find most comfortable putting into our course. Wiggins and McTighe tell us that's the opposite of what you should do. So we have these stages, and one of the first things they talk about in their book is, if we do this well, we should be able to answer those questions that students honestly ask us, such as, why are we learning this? So what? And Wiggins and McTighe talk about those are the very questions we need to be able to answer. Those are the very questions that are related to the big ideas from that article you've already read in this module. And that we need to be so clear on what those big ideas are for our course, our unit, our lessons, and that they are all connected, so that what we are teaching is worthy of our discipline. Wiggins and McTighe in their book talk about the twin sins of planning. Now I want you to think about this. They talk about how some of us do activities for activity's sake. Some of us as instructors really love certain methods and activities even if they are not related directly to the learning for our course, our unit, our lesson. This is one of the twin sins of planning. And the other sin of planning is coverage. We try to put so much into our courses, our units, etc., that the learning is lost. There are just these readings that we think students should have. And sometimes, if they're not directly related, we set up goals that actually interfere with the final goal. We'll be talking about that more. So after we're clear on the goals, which, by the way, are not that easy to determine. What do I mean by that? Oftentimes, when I talk to instructors about the goals, the learning objectives, whatever you call them, the targets of the course, I'm told what students will do. What students will do can muddy the waters as to what they are learning. It can be clouding up the thoughts of the students, but also our thoughts, our clarity on what's being learned. Again, this is why we started with that article, The Big Idea. So after we're clear on the goals and clear on the learning, the next step is the gathering of evidence, what most of us call the assessment process. So once we determine the goal, the assessment process, the gathering of evidence, must be directly related to the goal, right? So when we determine what we will accept that demonstrates the student totally understands our curriculum, we have to set up clear success criteria for that particular assessment. The success criteria for that work must be so clear that the student can self-assess prior to ever submitting their assessment, that you and I, as instructors, we can't fudge. The success criteria are there. Whether we like the student or don't like the student, or don't appreciate the method that they used or not, are they demonstrating the success criteria that you and I have chosen as evidence of learning? And finally, after all of that, then we can plan lessons. We can plan instruction. It's the last thing you do in the process. And this instruction then must be directly related to the first two steps. It has to be. There should not be instruction in our units or our course that is unrelated to the learning. It's essential. Also, as we talked about in the previous module, this instruction must be culturally responsive. And we'll get into more detail about that, putting them together. And obviously, instruction has to be tailored to the audience, in this case, our students. And if we followed Module 1, by this time, we know our students. Critical. So, finally, after we've done these three, and we get our assessment back, the data from the assessments are critical. That data collected at the end of the process clearly tells us about student learning and our teaching. So, finally, in their introduction to backwards design, they talk about the hook and hold 'em. Have we planned this entire unit to grab the students, to motivate them, to ensure that they want to come to our class, to dive further into the learning? Thank you.